back around to law and what law looks like when applied. In 1994, we also had a crime bill. That crime bill made 5 grams of crack, which is this big, equal to a half a brick of cocaine. I saw tons of black men and women wiped off the streets with sentences they didn't deserve simply because the leaders in the African-American community didn't say to their allies, stop, wait, let's see how that is going to affect me first. So this is a nation of laws. But again, to African Americans, it is going to affect you first and worst if we simply jump on the bandwagon and say, pass all the laws.
Will not be before you long, but I wanted to address something real quick. Something that, you know, I'm Joanne Reed from whatever, her show. She's, you know, was giving cape for Hillary and whatnot and all these other Democrats for the 94 crime bill. And she said something that I keep hearing a lot from people who want to excuse these white candidates who are getting heat for their participation. There's, you know, well, Hillary wasn't there, and why don't you go after Bernie because he helped write it? Or no, he voted for it. And then you got to go after Joe Biden because he wrote that shit. We agree. They all going to get it too. Your creepy Uncle Joe's going to get it. And Bernie Sanders is going to have to address it as well. But it was this weird thing where they keep doing caping, like Michael Eric Dyson said a several times. Well, Hillary wasn't in office. I'm going to address that in a different video. No, she wasn't. But we can't remove the lily white woman promoting her white husband's policy. We're going to make a contrast to that to something else. But anyways, again, Killer Mike, Ebro, Joanne Reed, y'all keep saying that black folks in the CBC voted for it as well. Most of them people aren't even in office anymore. Bobby Rush apologized for what he did. Bernie Sanders did not. He went on the Breakfast Club and said, yo, it was between some white women getting beat by their white husbands and, the 94 crime, the AR-15 ban. And he said, well, we choose that. Same thing with Joe Biden. When he was asked, does he apologize? Does he regret doing it? He said the same thing. It was a bill about women getting hit, and it was banning guns. And we chose that over a better policy that would target the situation that was going on in them streets. But people keep saying that nobody spoke against it. They keep saying that our black leaders didn't do nothing and they all supported. That's not true. There was pushback. These people wanted the crime to stop. Absolutely, we all did. However, they wanted rehabilitation. They wanted programs. They didn't want, if you go to jail for this situation, you get out, you can't get federal student aids anymore. They didn't want you to not be able to move into public housing once you get out. Like, they didn't want a lot of these things that were thrown into the bill that were unnecessarily an overkill. And you hear Roland Abule-Burr talking about, you know, why it was so hard and why Democrats did that. And he even made excuses saying Democrats didn't want to be soft on crime or whatever. So, but we know from the book, and I will link the book of the dude who wrote the book, it had nothing to do with that. Bill Clinton did what he did because he wanted to do it. He didn't have to do it. He had control. The previous administration, of course, he lost it, I think, in that his second term, but he didn't have to do all that. Like, he had enough Democrats in power where he could have wrote a cohesive bill that targeted what needed to be targeted without doing the overkill. He wanted to go overkill because he wanted to do it. And all these people like Roland and others are trying to say it was Republicans' fault. No, it was his fault. He did that shit. They didn't have to do that shit. They had power. They didn't have to make the bill so overkill. And again, Joe Biden helped write that shit. Bernie Sanders voted for it. And crooked Hillary, she cheerleaded for it. But let's stop saying that all the black leaders wanted that bill. And those who did sign it, at least they apologized for their contribution to it. These white candidates, they ain't apologizing. They said, you know what? It is what it is. But there were voices, strong voices, who were against it and pointed out how poison it. What did he say? I am somebody. This bill is poison laced with cyanide. That was what Jesse Jackson said. So stop saying that all the black leaders was on it and they wanted it too. That's not true. They knew that bill was too much and a problem. All right. So Joe Biden versus Messy Jesse Jackson. I am somebody. On 94 crime
my
bill.
wife, your husband, my mother, your parents. It doesn't matter whether or not they were deprived as a youth. It doesn't matter or not whether or not they had no background that enabled them to become socialized into the fabric of society. It doesn't matter whether or not they're the victims of society. The end result is they're about to knock my mother on the head with a lead pipe, shoot my sister, beat up my wife, take on my sons. So I don't want to ask what made them do this. They must be taken off the street. That's number one. There's a consensus on that. Unless we do something about that cadre of young people, tens of thousands of them, born out of wedlock, without parents, without supervision, without any structure, without any conscience developing, because they literally, I yield myself 3 more minutes, because they literally have not been socialized. They literally have not had an opportunity. We should focus on them now. If we don't, they will, or a portion of them will, become the predators 15 years from now. And Madam President, we have predators on our streets that society has, in fact, in part because of its neglect, created. Again, it does not mean because we created them that we somehow forgive them or do not take them out of society to protect my family and yours from them. They are beyond the pale, many of those people. Beyond the pale. And it's a sad commentary on society. We have no choice but to take them out of society. And the truth is, we don't very well know how to rehabilitate them at that point. That's the sad truth. I'm the guy that said, rehabilitation, when it occurs, we don't understand it and notice it. And even when we notice it and we know it occurs, we don't know why. So you cannot make rehabilitation a condition for release. That's why in our system, the federal system, you serve 85% of your time. It's a shame, but we don't know how to rehabilitate. But there is a consensus, and I will cease. A, we must make the streets safer. I don't care why someone is a malefactor in society. I don't care why someone is antisocial. I don't care why they've become a sociopath. We have an obligation to cordon them off from the rest of society, try to help them, try to change their behavior. That's why we do in this bill. We have drug treatment and we have other treatments to try to deal with it. But they are in jail, away from my mother, your husband, our families. But we would be absolutely stupid as a society if we didn't recognize the condition that nurtured those folks still exist. And we must deal with that.
In the heat of the battle, who would not bow in the face of this criminal act called the crime bill? Now, I must try to lay this out in just a moment. I want to thank in a special way the leader of the ACLU, who's sitting with us today, because no one has argued the case more forcefully and given more data and kept us abreast than Laura Murphy. Lee, give her a hand, would you please? Thank you. Brother Smith and all of you who are gathered. When we use the term back in the civil rights days, that itself shows a slick spot on the brain. It is as if you've been disconnected from time and space back in the civil rights days. There is some assumption that these days of civil rights struggle have been suspended and are not yet upon us. The civil rights struggle, the racial justice struggle, the gender equality struggle continues. In biblical terms, that was a great celebration when David slew Goliath. But they didn't celebrate too long, because while they were glad that David beat Goliath, Goliath had sons, and the giants kept coming. So today we beat Jim Crow in the South, but Jim Crow Esquire keeps coming. And when Jim Crow was a wolf wearing wolf clothes, we were psychologically positioned to fight Jim Crow. But when Jim Crow goes to Yale or someplace and disguises his wolf instinct in sheep clothing, the Bible reminds us. When wolves come in sheep clothing, they are more deceptive. So if Bush says fast track jobs in Mexico, we say no, we got to fight for our job. But if Clinton says NAFTA, we say, well, NAFTA that's a little different. It's the same thing. If Reagan had proposed a Howard Johnson 60 new flavors of killing plan, if Reagan had proposed $10 billion in new prison construction, while school systems in D.C. closed because of lack of capital improvement, and others should be closed for the same reason, there have been massive demonstrations. Reagan could not have put through this crime bill. Bush could not have put through this crime bill. It's a combination of Kool-Aid and cyanide. And those who try to trade Kool-Aid off from cyanide didn't read Jim Jones' story. You cannot make that distinction. This is a criminal act. I was in Lake